Did you know that prior to the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision, women would have to travel to other states, other countries, or risk their health or their life in order to make the decision as to what happens to their bodies? My purpose today is to persuade you to keep Roe v. Wade as it stands and to see women as competent adults able to make this decision for themselves. I come before you as a woman, a mom, a daughter, and as someone who's conducted research in order to show you why women should have that right and that responsibility. I am a mom of 6, with 3 of them being girls. This is really important to me personally. You may not agree with what I have to say, and that's okay. I can respect that. I'm not actually pro-abortion. I would consider myself more pro-life, but I feel like this topic has so much hurt and anger and hate associated with it. And we cannot and we should not force our opinion on somebody else. After you hear what I have to say, you may even change your mind a little bit and see that women should have a right and a say as to what happens to their bodies. With this in mind, I want to guide us through discussing the problem, looking at a few causes, and provide a possible solution. With this roadmap in place, let's begin on discussing the problem. The problem is that lawmakers and members of society want to overturn the Roe v. Wade decision. An example of this is the state of Alabama, who passed a law recently banning abortions at almost any stage of gestation. According to the article, Alabama law makes almost any abortion a crime. The law bans abortion at almost every stage of gestation, and doctors could face 10 to 99 years in prison for performing an abortion. This demonstrates to me that lawmakers are attempting to overturn the Roe v. Wade decision. Another example is the concern over Supreme Court justices and which ones are willing to overturn the Roe v. Wade decision. In a 1917 article titled "Overruling Roe v. Wade, The Implications in the Law," Paul Benjamin Linton, an attorney who specializes in state and federal constitutional law, says, "There are probably 3 justices on the current court who would be willing to vote to overturn Roe v. Wade." This shows a move towards overturning Roe v. Wade, as people are very aware as to which Supreme Court justices are willing to overturn that decision. With this problem in mind, let's look at a few causes. There are 2 main reasons why lawmakers would like to overturn Roe v. Wade. The first is the belief that the fetus is human life at fertilization. According to the 2017 article, "When Does Life Begin?" it's pretty simple. Paul Stark, a communications associate writing in the National Right to Life News, tells us, "Human embryos and fetuses are living members of the species Homo sapiens at the embryonic and fetal stages of their lives. However, the fetus is not viable outside the womb, and it cannot support its own life." In a 2019 article titled "Abortion as a Moral Good," Katie Watson, a lawyer and medical journalist, tells us, "People who conclude abortion is morally acceptable think that the qualities gained during pregnancy, such as the ability to think, feel, or survive outside the womb, are required to turn human tissue into a human being. So the qualities don't just exist because the egg was fertilized, but rather are gained during the pregnancy." The second reason is that abortion can cause psychological damage to the mother. In a 2015 article titled "Negative Abortion Experiences," Priscilla K. Coleman, PhD, tells us that for a significant percentage of women, abortion marks the beginning of a tumultuous journey colored by feelings of regret, loss, sadness, depression, anxiety, suicidal behaviors, and alienation from others. However, the majority of women do not experience these negative effects. According to Antonia Briggs, PhD, who works in obstetrics, gynecology, and reproductive services, in a 2015 article titled "Mental Health Diagnosis, 3 years after receiving or being denied an abortion," among women seeking abortions near facility gestational limits, those who obtained abortions were at no greater mental health risk than were women who carried an unwanted pregnancy to term. Now that we have an understanding of the problem, let's move to a possible solution. The solution to uphold Roe v. Wade offers 2 benefits. The first is women know what is best for their bodies and what is going on with their bodies and can make the appropriate choices for that. The 2017 article published by University of Florida Journal of Law titled Undue Burden with a Bite, Shielding the Reproductive Rights from the Jaws of Politics. Niraj Thakur, judicial law clerk, tells us that the court placed a high degree of importance on a woman's ability to choose whether to carry the pregnancy to its full term. Our courts even recognize that women have this ability to be able to make the decisions as to what happens with them. The second benefit is a woman getting the safe and effective care that they need. In a 2018 article by Julie Engelfinger, MD, professor of pediatrics at Harvard, she tells us the story of a woman that she calls Jane. In 1968, Jane was a dialysis patient. She was also in her final year of nursing school when she found out that she was pregnant. She felt like she had no choice and no options. She wasn't ready to have a baby, and so she chose to have an abortion. But in 1968, abortion was illegal, so she had a back alley abortion. This eventually proved fatal for Jane. She ended up in sepsis with multi-organ failure. She survived the abortion, but not without having a hysterectomy, and her kidneys stopped working. That's the reason she was on dialysis. She lived for a couple years before eventually passing away. The really sad part about this is that if it had only happened a few years later, the chances of her passing away from having an abortion would have been minuscule. Julie tells us, why am I telling Jane's story now? The lack of legal and safe abortion before the Roe v. Wade decision of 1973 killed and maimed thousands of young women. Should that decision be overturned and abortion again become illegal, there will be countless other young women just like Jane. I want to direct your attention to the television screen. On the left, you can see the number of deaths that were caused by abortion or attributed to abortions. And at the bottom, you can see the year that it was marked on here. Prior to 1973, the number of deaths caused or attributed to abortions are actually, I would consider astronomical. They're quite high. And as you can see, after 1973, it drops to almost non-existent. In conclusion, the decision in the Roe v. Wade case has given women the autonomy to make safe and effective reproductive choices for themselves. So let's review what we've learned here today. First, we learned the problem, which is that lawmakers and some members of society are attempting to overturn Roe v. Wade, which is evidenced by Alabama passing a law making almost any abortion a crime, and the awareness as to which justices might overturn the Roe v. Wade decision. Next, we learned 2 reasons why lawmakers and citizens want to overturn Roe v. Wade, which includes that life begins at conception and that there's concern for the psychiatric welfare of the mom. However, despite the belief that life begins at conception, fetuses cannot survive outside the womb, and they cannot be considered a life, and the majority don't suffer from negative effects. Finally, we learned the solution, which is to uphold Roe v. Wade, and it offers 2 significant benefits, which are a woman knows what is best for her body, and that all women, regardless of who they are, no matter where they are in life, they need to have access to safe and effective reproductive care. I believe that some people may have the idea that we have a lot of abortion because Roe v. Wade passed, but in fact, abortions were happening before the passage of Roe v. Wade. The difference is that many women died because of it. I am not pro-abortion, but I do believe that our country was founded on freedom and freedom of choice. And I feel that they should have that freedom of choice even if I don't agree with it. I've shown you evidence why upholding Roe v. Wade is important. And now that you have some information, I hope that you will see the importance of safe and legal and effective reproductive care for all women.